Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Pavlak. I am a systems engineer with Fortinet, and today we are going to be taking a look at ZTNA tags, Zero Trust Network Access tags, with FortiClient and FortiEMS to reach internal resources from anywhere over the internet. Specifically today, we're going to be taking a look at ZTNA tags reaching a Windows RDP server. I am going to share my screen with you so we can take a look at a basic topology and a high-level overview of how this is going to work. So we have our EMS server here, which is going to communicate with our end user device, which has FortiClient running and installed on this device. And then we have our FortiGate here, which will be checking ZTNA tags on the access proxy VIP and allowing or denying access to the Windows RDP server. So how this works, the FortiEMS server will be doing posture checking on this remote user device. Those are customizable and configurable rules that you will set that can basically say, is this a vulnerable client? Do they have antivirus running on their device? If so, yes, we will send down the ZTNA tag to this device, which will then allow them access to the Windows RDP server. The FortiClient also shares telemetry data back to FortiEMS, and that telemetry data is also shared with the FortiGate, which is also another plus. And just one thing to keep in mind here, this is not a traditional VPN tunnel. This is a basic HTTPS session between the end user device and the FortiGate. The end user device encapsulates that RDP session inside of an HTTPS tunnel back to the access VIP on the FortiGate. The FortiGate would then strip off the headers, unencrypt, and then send it back down. That is what that TCP forwarding is doing there. It will also check to make sure, the FortiGate will also check to make sure that the device has the required tag, basically passing the posture checking that you've set. And if so, if it does have that tag, it will allow access to the server. If it does not have that tag, it will be denied access. So that is just a basic high-level overview of how this all works. Just to touch on the telemetry data that is shared between EMS and FortiGate, it's just another plus that we have here with this setup. On our security dashboard on our FortiGate, we can get a high-level overview of what our end user devices looks like in terms of vulnerabilities. You can see in my environment here, I have a couple of vulnerable devices. This information is shared with FortiClient back to FortiGate, and then you can also get some telemetry data on the physical topology tab on your FortiGate. Once this loads up here, so we can see back here, we have 7 devices behind my FortiGate. The ones that show up in red here, those are going to be vulnerable devices. So my MacBook is being considered a vulnerable device by FortiClient. That shows up as red here. These gray ones are passing that vulnerability check. And then you get also just a little bit of additional telemetry information on those devices. Now, to go into the configurations of this ZTNA, we're going to go over to our EMS server, and we're going to be making 2 different profiles for our device. We're going to be making an on-fabric profile and an off-fabric profile. And what that means is if you are on fabric, which means that you are basically in office, let's say behind a FortiGate, you will have one specific profile assigned to you, which could be, we have web filtering turned off because our FortiGate itself is doing the web filtering. We don't need that enabled on our end user devices when you're on fabric. Then you're going to have an off fabric profile, which would have web filtering enabled because we're not behind the FortiGate. So we need web filtering from the FortiClient. And then also we will be assigning ZTNA tags to our off fabric profile, which will allow us to reach those internal resources when we are off fabric. So first, we are going to be setting our on fabric, off fabric rules. So if you go to endpoint policy and components, click on fabric detection rules. And then you would click add here. I already have this one set up, so I'm just going to click edit. It's named home. And then I added a rule, and my rule says if my end user device has an IP address within this subnet range, that means that I am on fabric. You can also customize this, and we have all these other different options to determine if you're on fabric or off fabric. For example, you could ping a server. If I'm able to ping the server, that means that I'm on fabric. If I can't ping it, that means I'm off fabric. So you're going to set up those basic on fabric, off fabric rules. Once you have that set up, we are going to go under endpoint profiles, and we're going to make our profiles for when we are on fabric, and then we'll make our profiles for when we're off fabric. So all of these options will have a default on them already. So you can customize those default ones. You can delete it. You can just change it, do whatever you want with it. And then you're going to make your off fabric rules for all of these different options that we have. So you would just click the add button and then save these. Specifically, I want to take a look at the ZTNA destinations for our off fabric. This is going to be important for what we're doing here. So I already have a off fabric ZTNA destination profile set up for my ESXi server. So we're going to just amend the off fabric ZTNA destination profile that I have. So I'm just going to click edit here. You would click add if you don't have an off fabric rule set up here yet. So this is my ZTNA destination for my ESXi server. And one thing that I just wanted to note here is this is going to be a traditional HTTPS session that's created back. So this is not TCP forwarding. So this is a little bit of a different one here. So if I want to reach my ESXi server, this is all done just via HTTPS session. So I can just type in here and then I am listening on this IP address. So within my web browser, I'm able to customize the IP address and the port number to be able to reach this. And then you can see that I don't have the correct tags set up because I'm on fabric. So my access is denied. If this was, if I did have the tag, it would prompt me for the certificate to send over to, which is basically the ZTNA tag. The ZTNA tag just uploads a certificate onto your machine, and then your web browser will prompt you to send over that certificate. When you're doing an RDP session using the RDP client, you don't get that prompt to send over the certificate. So how we want to do this then is we're going to add a destination. We're going to name this RDP. For the destination host, you're going to be typing in the local IP address for the RDP server. That is going to be 92.168.91.13. And then that server is listening on the default RDP port, which is 3389. Here is going to be our proxy gateway. This is going to be the virtual IP that you're setting up on your FortiGate. So that my virtual IP, which we're going to set up later, is going to be just my WAN IP address. 196. And then this is going to be listening on port 13389. And basically what we're doing with specifying these port numbers here is the FortiClient on your end user is going to be looking for you trying to reach this IP address on this port number. So it's going to intercept that traffic and then send it over to the it's going to encapsulate it inside the HTTPS session, send it over to this IP address, and then it's going to change it to this port number. So this is the virtual IP that is listening on my FortiGate. So we're going to go ahead and then if you just hit advanced, if you want to just for this lab purpose, make sure that the eye is turned on so we can actually see this within the FortiClient GUI. So just go ahead and turn that on, click save. And then just for our lab purposes as well, if you go under system settings and then our off fabric rule, also just make sure that show zero trust tags on the FortiClient GUI is turned on so we can, for our lab purposes, we can see that we're getting sent the correct ZTNA tags to our client. So once you're done customizing how you want your off fabric profile rules on all these different options here, then we're going to come back to endpoint policy and components, and you're going to click manage policies. You're going to add, and basically you're going to be setting up your off fabric profile components. So I have mine set up here already. This is going to be our off fabric rule. And specifically, we want to make sure that our ZTNA is set to that ESXi profile that I made, which has our RDP destination set up in there. Once you have that configured, we're going to be going down to our zero trust tags and then our zero trust tagging rules. This is where we're going to be setting up our ZTNA tags and our posture checking on our endpoints. So we're going to click add. We're going to name this our RDP tag. You can customize your name for it. We are just going to use RDP. And then this is where you're going to be setting up your posture checking. So you have all these different OS types. I'm going to be using Mac. So I'm going to check my endpoints, make sure that they do have antivirus installed. And we are going to make sure that they are actually have FortiClient installed and that they are connected to the EMS telemetry. So these are totally customizable. You can set this up however you want. And then you can also edit the logic of the rules. You can do and or. So the default is 1 and 2. You could set this up to say 1 or 2. So if they pass either one of these, we'll get sent down the ZTNA tag. I'm going to leave this as 1 and 2 to make sure that they pass both of these before they get the ZTNA tag. Once we have our ZTNA tag configured, we are going to now hop over to our FortiGate and we're going to create our VIP on our FortiGate. So if you go now to policy and objects and then ZTNA, you may need to actually enable this under the feature visibility, which is systems and then feature visibility, and then just turn on ZTNA. So under our ZTNA here, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to click on our ZTNA servers. And this is basically where we're going to be creating our VIP. So we're going to create new. We're going to name this RDP. The external interface that I'm listening on is going to be my WAN interface. This is just going to be using my IP address that is actually assigned to my interface because I do not have any extra IPs, and I'm also located behind my ISP's device. So this is the IP address that is assigned to my WAN interface, and then I'm going to be listening on port 13389. Here you're going to select your default certificate. So this is the HTTPS certificate that's going to be exchanged with the FortiClient device to encrypt that traffic over the internet. You can use the default SSL certificate that's on your FortiGate. I have a certificate that I made, so I'm going to use that one. And then we need to create our server mapping now. So this is going to be a TCP forwarding session. So this is just basically means that my RDP session is going to be wrapped up inside that HTTPS TLS session to the FortiGate. The FortiGate would then take off those HTTP headers and unencrypt the traffic, and then take that RDP traffic inside of there, and then just forward that down to my server. So we're going to be doing TCP forwarding. Our virtual host would be any in this instance. You can customize that if you would like to listen to like a specific certificate and substring. So under the servers, we're going to be clicking create new. This is my RDP server is going to be my Surface Pro in this case. So I'm going to click that. You can also click the create button if you don't have a IP address set up yet. So you could click the create button and then just firewall address. I have this set up already. So this is going to be my Surface Pro laptop. And then the port number that my laptop is listening on is going to be 3389, the default RDP port. Then we're going to click OK. And OK. And OK. Okay, now we have our ZTNA server set up. We are going to set up our ZTNA rule. We are going to name this RDP. The incoming interface is our WAN interface. The source and destination, you can specify that, or you can leave as all. I typically just leave them as all because I am actually going to be checking for the ZTNA tag. So they can be any source, just as long as they have the ZTNA tag, they can reach that. So our ZTNA server is going to be our RDP server, the one that we just set up there. And then this is where you can get a little more granular and control over who can reach that. You're going to set up your ZTNA tags here. So we have our RDP tag that we made. This is going to be a MAC address tag and an IP address tag. And you can say, the end user device needs to have all of the tags that I've listed here. If they're missing any one of the tags that are here, they're not able to reach the resource. I'm going to leave this. If they have either one of these tags listed here, they're going to be able to reach it. We're going to set this action as an accept tag. And then you can set up your security profiles just like you would any other rule here. So we can set up antivirus. We can set up IPS, and then we're just going to leave this as a default certificate inspection. We're not going to be doing any deep inspection here. And then for this case, we're going to be logging all sessions so we can go and check our logs later to make sure that everything looks good. If you wanted to get a little more control over who can access resources, you can set up a basic, this is a very typical use case. You can set up a ZTNA tag for any device that is considered a critical vulnerable device that is considered by FortiClient. So if they are running, if they have virus on their machine, if they have malware, anything that's considered vulnerability, that would be tagged by the EMS server. And then if they have that tag, then they would not be able to reach any resource. You can set that up here, and you would configure that under your ZTNA tag, and you would set your action as deny. And then you would, if they have that tag, they're not able to reach any of my servers. That was a little off topic, but just a little pointer there. One thing to note here, this video is assuming that your FortiGate is connected to the EMS server. You will need to set up your EMS server to communicate to the FortiClient or FortiGate, which would be under security fabric, and then external connectors, or I'm sorry, fabric connectors. And then you would set up your FortiClient EMS server here. You can also confirm that your FortiGate is talking to the FortiEMS server if you click on the ZTNA tags. Once you make a tag in your EMS server, you can come over to your FortiGate, and under the ZTNA tags, you should see all the different ZTNA tags that you have configured on your EMS server. So now that we have all the configurations done, let's go ahead and test this out now. So I am going to go off Fabric now. I am going to connect to my hotspot, which will take me I'm off Fabric. So now I got my off Fabric profile, which is going to include my ZTNA destinations. And then you can check, if you click on the picture here, you can also check what ZTNA tags are assigned to the device here. We do have our RDP tag. So let's go ahead and try to reach the RDP server. So in the RDP client here, you're going to be typing in the local IP address of the Windows RDP server. So we're going to go ahead and double click here and try to connect. It's going to prompt you for username and password. Yes, I still use a Hotmail address. Let's just go ahead and try this again. And as you can see, we are connected back to the RDP server. Now let's go ahead and let's change our posture check just to make sure this is actually working as it should. So let's change our posture check to add an additional rule that my client will not pass. So I will still have that ZTNA destination, but I won't have the correct tag assigned to me. So I won't be able to allow access to that. So let's just add an additional rule here to our RDP ZTNA tag. Let's just say, let's add a certificate tag that I don't have. So subject CN, issuers CN. So I do not have a certificate with these details on there. So now I should not pass this posture check. Let's go back here. If you click the three lines here, you can see the next time it's going to check in. So let's just wait until this checks in again. Once it does, I should lose that RDP tag. And as you can see, I've lost that RDP tag. Still have the ZTNA destination, but I don't have the tag, so I should not be able to reach this RDP server anymore. So let's go ahead and try to connect, and we are unable to connect. So that works as expected. We can verify in our FortiGate logs. So let me get can see when we lost our RDP tag, you can see the denied traffic here. Hope this was helpful for everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.